The sun rose slowly over the dusty horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain where Elena Stone moved carefully through the cracked earth and shattered dreams. She had been in the field for weeks, months, really each day a test of endurance. Willpower and grit, the kind of days that erased the line between fear and courage. Elena was no stranger to hardship. Her journey had begun long before this war zone, long before the bullet grazed her thigh and the orders came down to send her home. She was the kind of soldier that did not just follow orders. She earned respect through action, through sacrifice, and the quiet strength that kept her standing when others fell. The morning had started like any other, with the harsh light burning her skin and the smell of dust filling her lungs. Her unit was small, now worn down by skirmishes and loss, but still determined to finish what they had started. As they advanced toward a cluster of ruined buildings, Elena noticed the tense silence among her squad, the kind of silence that screams danger. Hidden eyes, watching, waiting, patience sharpened like a blade. Then the first shot rang out, sharp and sudden, cutting through the stillness like a knife. It was not the first time bullets had flown past her, but this time the wound was real, a graze across her thigh, enough to slow her, but not enough to stop her. Her squad quickly pulled her to cover, but the damage was done. The commanding officers made the call. She was to be sent back, deemed to injured for further combat, a decision made not with malice but with cold calculation. Yet Elena refused to give up. She could not leave, not when her team still needed her, when the mission was not complete. As she prepared to be evacuated, something unexpected happened. A voice broke through the radio chatter, a voice not her allies, but her enemy, calm, steady, and haunting. The words were simple, a question that sent a chill through everyone listening. Is she still alive? The question was not a challenge or a threat, but a spark of something more complicated, something that no one was ready to understand. In the quiet that followed, everyone waited, holding their breath, as the sniper's question lingered in the air. The day that should have ended with her departure suddenly turned into a turning point, the moment when fate shifted and a new story began, a story of survival, resilience, and the fragile threads that connect enemies in the unlikeliest of ways. And Elena knew in that moment that she was not done fighting yet, not by a long shot. Sniper's question hung heavy in the stale morning air as Elena limped back toward the makeshift base, her mind racing with doubt and determination. The wound was minor, but the message behind that question was anything but. Elena had faced countless dangers in her career, yet something about that voice unsettled her. It was not the sound of an enemy trying to intimidate or kill. It was something softer, more human, and that small flicker of uncertainty sparked a fire within her. Back at the camp, the commanders debated fiercely, some pushing for her immediate evacuation, others willing to risk keeping her in the field. Her record spoke for itself: the medals, the successful missions, the lives saved, but in their eyes a wounded soldier was a liability. The tension was thick and palpable, but Elena's refusal to accept defeat was stronger, her voice steady as she argued for one last mission to prove that she was still capable, that her spirit was unbroken. The order finally came through to allow her 48 more hours in the field, and she took them like a lifeline, knowing that every second counted, that every moment could be the difference between survival and surrender. While she prepared her gear, she thought of the sniper who had asked if she was still alive. What had driven a man sworn to kill her to question her existence? Why had he hesitated to finish the job? Did he see something in her that mirrored his own struggles? As she moved out with her team, the terrain was unforgiving, a mixture of jagged rocks, dry scrub, and the ruins of what had once been homes. Elena led with a fierce focus, each step measured, her eyes scanning for threats, but also for answers. She needed to understand the enemy who had spared her and what that meant for the war they were both fighting. Somewhere in the distance, the sniper watched from his hidden perch, his eyes never leaving her form, his heart heavy with memories of loss and regret, memories of a sister lost in a war that seemed endless. He questioned his own loyalty, wondering if this war was truly about enemies or about broken souls caught in a conflict they did not choose. The day wore on, with the sun climbing higher and heat pressing down on the weary soldiers. The silence between Elena and the sniper became a fragile thread connecting to worlds. She did not know it yet, but their fates were intertwined in ways that Neither command nor bullets could ever predict, and as the sun dipped low promising the arrival of night, Alina's resolve only deepened. She was determined to live to fight and to uncover the truth behind the sniper's haunting question. The dawn broke slowly, spilling pale light over the shattered landscape where Alina moved cautiously, her senses heightened from the night before, the question from the sniper still echoing in her mind, the thought of an enemy showing hesitation confused her in ways she had never expected. As she led her team through the ruins, every shadow seemed alive, every sound a potential threat, but beneath the tension was an unspoken understanding that this battle was different. Alina's legs still throbbed with pain, but she pushed herself harder because quitting was never an option, not for her, not now. The sniper watched her from a distance, hidden behind cracked concrete and rusted metal, his rifle steady but his heart restless. He had trained to be a ghost, to be invisible, yet Alina saw through that invisibility as if she sensed the humanity beneath the mask of war, and for the first time he questioned everything: the war, the orders, the reasons he had taken up his rifle to kill or be killed. The radio crackled suddenly, breaking the fragile silence with a message from Alina's team. They had spotted movement near the old water tower, a known sniper nest, a place where countless soldiers had fallen, and now Alina had to decide whether to confront the danger head-on or to find another path. Her mind raced, weighing risk against reward, but the decision was made for her when the sniper appeared briefly at the edge of the ruins, a shadow among shadows, his eyes locking with hers for a fleeting second. In that instant, something passed between them, a silent conversation of acknowledgement, respect, and perhaps a plea for peace. She lowered her rifle just slightly, a gesture he returned before disappearing again into the rubble. Alina's team advanced cautiously, the tension thick, but now tempered with an unspoken hope that maybe enemies could see each other as people, not just targets. The day stretched on with narrow escapes and tense encounters, neither side gaining ground, but something deeper was unfolding, something that neither bullets nor orders could stop. As night fell, Alina found herself alone for a moment under the stars, her thoughts heavy. She wondered about the sniper who had spared her, about the sister he had lost, about the invisible lines that war drew between people. She reached into her pocket and touched the worn photograph she carried, the one that had been passed to her by a local elder, the image of a family torn apart but still holding on to hope. She realized then that this war was not just about territory or power, but about the fragile connections that bind us even in the darkest times. And somewhere out there, the sniper looked up at the same stars, wondering if she was still alive, and hoping that maybe one day they could both find a way home. The morning broke with a heavy quiet, the kind that presses down on everything. As Alina and her team moved cautiously through the ruins, the sniper watched from his perch, a silent witness to the unfolding day, his gaze never leaving her form even as the world around them seemed to hold its breath. Alina's leg ached with every step, but her determination burned brighter than ever. She knew that leaving now was not an option, not when the answers she sought were so close. Her mind replayed the moment the sniper had asked if she was still alive, a question that had pierced through the noise and fear and reminded her of something she had nearly forgotten, that beneath the uniform and the war there was still a person, still a life worth fighting for. As she moved closer to the center of the village, her team spread out, taking cover behind broken walls and abandoned vehicles. The tension was palpable, every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Then the sniper made his move, not to attack, but to reveal himself, stepping into the open with hands raised, not in surrender, but in peace. His eyes locked with Alina's, a silent truce passing between them. The radio crackled with confusion and orders to open fire, but Alina shook her head, signaling hold fire. This moment was bigger than any command, bigger than the war itself. She lowered her rifle slowly, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. The sniper took a step forward, his voice breaking the silence, a whisper that carried the weight of loss and regret. I came to see if you were still alive because my sister told me to spare the ones who survive. Her name was Maya, and she believed that even in war mercy could be found. Alina blinked, fighting back The surge of emotion the story echoed her own loss, the sister she had never met but whose memory haunted her dreams. This was no longer just a fight between enemies, it was a meeting of two broken souls caught in the crossfire of a war they did not choose. The sniper lowered his rifle fully now and offered a photo. Weathered and torn, the image was of Maya smiling with two children, a family frozen in a moment of peace. Elena took the photo, trembling, her fingers tracing the faces. She whispered, "Thank you," and in that moment, the walls between them began to crumble. The soldiers, watching from their positions, lowered their weapons, uncertain but unwilling to break the fragile peace that had settled like a gentle fog over the battlefield. The day ended not with gunfire, but with quiet understanding, a moment of humanity in a place where it had all but disappeared, and Elena knew that her fight was not just to survive, but to find a way to carry that mercy forward even when everything else was lost. Sun climbed higher, casting harsh light over the scarred landscape where Elena and the sniper stood facing each other in a silence thick with unspoken words and fragile hope. The photo of Maya clutched tightly in Elena's hands was a small fragile thread connecting to worlds that had long been at war. Her team remained hidden, watching, wary but unable to act, caught between loyalty and the undeniable shift in their leader's stance. The sniper looked around the ruins, his eyes reflecting a pain deeper than any wound. Elena saw it, to the weight of memories that refused to fade and the cost of fighting a war that seemed endless. He spoke softly, his voice low but steady. "This is not just my fight," he said. "My sister believed in mercy, but I have seen too much to know if it can survive here." Yet Elena did not respond. Instead, she stepped closer, her every movement deliberate as she tried to bridge the gulf between them. Words would not be enough. She needed to show him that even in the darkest places there could be light. The sniper watched her approach, his body tense but his rifle lowered, a sign of trust fragile and rare. Elena extended her hand, not with a weapon but with an offer of peace. The moment stretched thin like a thread ready to snap, but then he took it, a simple gesture that spoke louder than any bullet ever could. The two stood there, the enemy and the soldier, bound by loss, hope, and the ghost of a sister who had believed in something better. Around them, the war continued its relentless march, but here in this broken village, something new had begun, a seed of understanding that might grow into something stronger than hatred or fear. As the afternoon faded into evening, Elena and the sniper talked in whispers, sharing stories of those they had loved and lost, the moments they had held on to when everything else was slipping away. Each word chipped away at the walls built by years of conflict and fear, and for the first time Elena felt the weight of hope, not as a fragile dream, but as a real possibility that perhaps peace was not impossible after all. But as night fell, the reality of their situation settled back and danger lurked still. The enemy was not just on the other side of the line, but in every shadow and every decision they made. Elena knew that this truce could not last forever, but it had changed something inside her, something that no order could, and the dawn crept slowly over the horizon, painting the broken ruins in hues of pink and gold. Elena woke with a heaviness in her chest, a mixture of hope and dread. The night had been a fragile peace, a brief pause in a war that showed no mercy. She glanced at the photo of Maya tucked safely in her pack, a reminder of the sister who had bridged enemies and the promise of something more. The sniper was gone when she rose, but the memory of his words lingered like a whispered secret between two souls caught in conflict. Her team moved quietly, ready for the day ahead, tension thick in the air, yet beneath the unease was a current of change. Elena's legs still throbbed, but she pushed forward, driven by the need to honor the fragile truce and the memory of Maya. Every step was a battle against pain and doubt, but also a step toward a future that felt uncertain but possible. The radio crackled with updates, reports of enemy movements and skirmishes that reminded her war was never far away. But today she carried with her a different mission, one that was not just about survival or victory, but about understanding the humanity buried beneath layers of violence and fear. As the day unfolded, Elena and her team navigated the shattered village, the sniper's presence a ghost that haunted their every move but also a beacon of hope. In a place where hope was scarce, they found signs of others who had passed through scars of battle etched into walls, messages carved into wood, reminders that war was not just fought with weapons but with stories and memories. Elena paused at a crumbled wall, tracing a symbol. She recognized a mark of peace left by someone long gone. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times there were those who believed in something better, that the fight was not always against each other, but for something greater. Her thoughts drifted to the sniper, wondering if he'd felt the weight of those memories. The night sky would come again soon, and with it the uncertainty of what tomorrow would bring, but Elena felt a new strength rising inside her, a determination not just to survive, but to carry the message of mercy forward to those who would listen, and maybe even to those who would not. The day ended with a quiet resolve that no matter what battles lay ahead, the question that had saved her was now her own, a question she would carry in her heart. Is she still alive, and what would she do with that life now that she had been given a second chance? The night wrapped the ruins in darkness as Elena sat by a small fire, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames and the weight of all that had passed. The fragile peace with the sniper had shifted something deep inside her, a longing not just for survival but for understanding. She thought of the families torn apart by the war, the children who would never know peace, and the soldiers on both sides caught in a cycle that seemed endless. The radio crackled softly, breaking the quiet with new orders, but Elena hesitated. The commands were clear, but her heart was conflicted. She knew that the war was far from over, and that the moment of mercy might be just that, a moment, a brief interruption in a larger storm. As she stared into the fire, she made a decision to reach out to the sniper again, to find a way to build on the fragile truce they had made, not for glory or victory, but for something human, something real. The next day Elena moved with cautious hope, following signs she had noticed before, markings left by the sniper, a symbol, a pattern, a path that seemed to invite her forward. She followed the trail through the ruins and broken streets, her team on alert yet trusting her instinct. When she reached the old bakery, a place untouched by war, somehow the sniper waited there. No rifle, no armor, just a man tired of fighting. He looked up as she approached, his eyes wary but not hostile. She held out the photo of Maya, the symbol of peace and loss between them, and said, "We have a chance to change this, to show them there is another way." He nodded slowly, understanding the risk and the hope tangled together in her words. For hours they talked, sharing stories of past lives, dreams lost, and futures still possible, each word building a fragile bridge across the divide around. Then the war raged on, but in that quiet space a new plan was born, a plan to save lives, to protect those caught in the crossfire, to find moments of peace in a world built on conflict. Elena knew the road ahead was dangerous, full of uncertainty and betrayal, but she also knew that this was the fight she was meant for, not just to survive, but to change the meaning of survival, to rewrite the story of what it meant to be enemy and ally. And as the sun set, casting long shadows over the ruins, Elena felt a quiet strength growing in her, a strength born not from weapons but from hope and the courage to believe that even in war there could be mercy.